The UK may have officially left the EU 3 days ago, but the real Brexit battle has only just begun, with both sides at odds over a future trade deal. The EU is ready to offer the UK a best-in-class deal.
Zero tariffs and zero quotas on all goods entering our single market of 450 million people. An ambitious free trade agreement in services with wide sectoral coverage ranging from business services to telecommunications or environmental services. We are also looking to include digital trade, intellectual property and access to our respective public procurement markets.
That offer is only valid as long as the UK sticks to EU laws and shares its waters with European fishermen.
If we can agree on this, as well as on robust commitments towards a level playing field, we will achieve a very ambitious, free and fair trade agreement.
Not in British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's view.
There is no need for a free trade agreement to involve accepting EU rules on competition policy, subsidies, social protection, the environment, or anything similar, any more than the EU should be obliged to accept UK rules.
Brussels has warned that the more the UK moves away from their rules, the less access it will have to the EU market. Something Johnson says the UK can live with.
The question is whether we agree a trading relationship with the EU comparable to Canada's or more like Australia's.
The EU and Australia don't have a formal deal, with trade running along basic World Trade Organization rules. Whereas the EU-Canada deal removes around 98% of tariffs on goods and services. It took 7 years to negotiate. The world's fifth largest economy and its biggest trading partner now have 11 months. And it seems both sides have made it clear they're prepared to walk away without a deal if no compromise can be reached. Sibel Karkus, TRT World.
Well, let's get more now on what happens after Brexit with Huw Edwards, a senior lecturer on economics at Loughborough University in the UK. Welcome to Money Talks, Huw. Now, as we heard there...
Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. As we heard there in our story, Boris Johnson wants this Canada-style agreement. He sees it as the most fair, the gold standard of agreements. But we know it took some 6 years for this agreement to come into force, and it still hasn't been ratified by all EU member states. How does Boris Johnson expect that a similar deal can be achieved in just 11 months?
It's very doubtful that a deal will be agreed in just 11 months. I think it's much more likely that things will actually, go on further. At the moment, in a sense, we've come through what you might call the phony war of the negotiating the withdrawal agreement, going through Brexit Day, which basically just means the last day when we can revoke Article 50 and cancel the process. So we're now definitely onto the Brexit process, but Brexit hasn't got done. There's a lot to do and a lot to negotiate. And this is really the stage where, in a sense, people begin to have to show their hands. We're starting out with a lot of bluff, I think, on both sides. Britain is trying to bluff that it can walk away. I really think that it will get very difficult for Johnson if he tries to do this. The EU is trying to bluff that you have to accept all our standards on everything and change them when we say we want to change them, which is a bit difficult. They will be bashing around to try and get some sort of compromise in between that. Because at the end of the day, most of our business is actually done with Europe.
That's right. Now, Boris Johnson has spoken a lot about achieving a zero tariff, zero quota deal, but not even this Canada agreement does that. Can Boris Johnson realistically expect to have an agreement that eliminates all tariffs, all quotas, if they're out of the EU?
Tariffs and quotas, well, Tariffs and quotas are one thing. The other thing is actually what you might call the border checks, border bureaucracy, and actually market access issues. So it's likely that we might actually be able to remove, as you just said, sort of the EU-Canada deals remove 98% of tariffs, but Canadians still have much more difficulty trading with the EU than Britain does. This isn't, despite what Boris Johnson says, a very ambitious deal. This is actually a deal which is slightly better than the sort of bare bones World Trade Organization terms, which even Australia is trying to get out of and trying to negotiate something better for them. So it's really market access is more difficult and actually probably more important. So it means being able to take your goods across without having to check everything, without having to sign large amounts of forms saying where goods have come from, where the sourcing of everything has come from. And Britain is facing difficult choices on this because at the same time the UK is trying to negotiate with America, many of the goods which America is trying to sell are frankly unacceptable in Europe. So, the more we align with America, the less we will be able to sell to Europe without going through expensive, time-consuming bureaucratic checks.
Okay, Huw Edwards, this is just the beginning of, I guess, what will be a long process. But thank you so much for shedding some light on that issue.
Much.